Good morning. I'm Ashley Apparocho, and you're watching Coffee with Catechists. Today, we are at St. Teresa's Parish in Campbellville, Guyana, and joining me today is Sally. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Sally, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Sally Farinah, and I'm a catechist. I started by assisting with the class because my children, they all received their formation here, and so I was invited to assist with the class and then I started because I used to come and sit right here on the lawns and wait on them. So I saw no harm in that, and my own desire to learn more about my faith, I accepted, so that's where I started. And so for the past 6 years, more or less, can't remember the exact date, time when, and so on. And so since then, I'm enjoying this vocation as a catechist. I teach the First Communion class, year B2. That class, there are two parts of it, the year 1 and the year 2. So I'm with the year 2, and it's very fulfilling and a privilege to be with those children.
Oh, that's very nice. So you said that you started teaching about 5 years ago, yes?
Yeah, about there.
Would you say that you were active in the church before that?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm a convert into the, in the Catholic faith. So I was here since as a youth. So I've been a youth leader, and
Nice.
I do serve in other ministries, Readers Ministry. So and I'm in the liturgy group. So I do serve in more than one ways here.
If you don't mind me asking, which faith did you come from?
Well, I was never baptized as a child because my father wanted to give his children, give them the power to make that choice. But I was raised in a Christian home, and most of my Sunday school or girl days was spent with the Pentecostal faith.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Assemblies of God.
How have you found that differs from the Catholic faith, and do you feel how did that help in becoming Catholic? Does that make sense?
Well, growing up in the Pentecostal faith, you have what you call the different phases. So when I reached about 12, we reached the stage where we had to make a decision to get baptized. And I knew that I did not want to belong to that church. And so it was my choice to be a Catholic.
Wow.
And so we had this lady walking in the street, and I knew she was coming here. So one day I said, I want to join that church. What must I do? And so she said, well, you come on this day and that day, you speak to Father Rose and so on. And so I just came as a young woman, a little older, around 14 years old. And, we had some other neighbors who were Catholics. And what I found, though, although I was enthusiastic to be a Catholic, the worship and so on was very different. And so I had to get into that. It's in the Catholic faith, it's more solemn and quiet. And so I had to get accustomed to that. And so I want to clap and sing out and shout out, And so that kind of transition I had to. And I remember even as a youth, when we go to Camp Kayuka and so on, we have the youth masses, the drums, and so we would come to Father Rose, we want to have this and that. And he would say then, Mass it's not a concert, it's something sacred. And growing up, maturing in the church, I come to learn that it is so. As I know more about, what Mass is, and what it should be like, the different parts of the Mass and so on. You get to understand it is something sacred, And so I can say I'm still transitioning, but I'm more now into what this faith is about. And not to say there are times in my home, actually one of my favorite channel is TBN. So I do sit down and I look at the other evangelical ministries and so on, and I enjoy that. But I kind of compare what I know now as I grow more in my faith to then, and they would have some criticism and their way is different, but now I understand more of my faith, why we do this, why we say that. And so I have most of the answers or some of the answers about my faith now, and so I just embrace it more fully and I teach it to my children and I pass that on to my students. I think being a catechist, we learn, every day we learn, and so even after doing the first level, I think in the catechetical program with Dayton, the online program, there's still so much to learn, so there is scope for us to know more and so on.
Do you think that the diocese could do anything else to help support catechists in training or in that regard?
Well, I know we are doing a lot right now. There's so many programs, I know Father Eddie has put together this roster training to standardize the catechism or the catechetical program, And so it's just for us to find the time and to go to the training. Yeah. So if they can do something more, I think it would have to do with the resources that we have available. But I think right now, there are programs out there, and I know from time to time there will be conferences, there will be training here and there. So I think what we have is adequate, but if there is more, I'm sure we're going to have the opportunity to do more.
What are your thoughts on the materials that you use for catechism?
Well, right now we're using the teacher's manual and the children are using the workbook. And I think that needs to be upgraded, because the lessons that are in it, yes, it speaks about the life of Jesus, but I think we need to incorporate more about our faith and so on. So like right now, if we just focus on the lessons in the book, we will not be teaching more about our faith and about the order of the Mass and things like that. So I am incorporating those things in the lessons. So yes, we're going to work with the lessons in the workbook, but you teach, like for me, the First Communion class, they're going to receive First Communion. So I would like to know that my students, they understand the order of the Mass, and they are encouraged to say their responses and that kind of thing.
That sounds like a lot of work to do to prepare for.
It depends on how you prepare and how you manage your time. Of course, with children at a certain level, you don't want to, overburden them and you have to deal with attention span and all of these things. But you have to know how much to give and when and so on. It's about management. Growing up as a child, as a young person, I've always been close to God in that if I want something and I know it's beyond my reach, or I pray, and I teach that to my children. Pray about everything, trusting God, pray. So I've been a person like that, and of course there have been times too when I was not perfect, and I trusted in the forgiveness of God, and I know that after being forgiven, He expects me to, to be, to show Him back that, I'm grateful for His grace and mercy. And so with that, I always, God is real for me. He's real for me. He's not just something and a story or a fantasy, and I just come like a robot. He is real for me. My faith is real for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you mentioned how you came from the Pentecostal church into Catholicism. What attracted you to Catholicism?
Well, I don't know, because I've never before, having this desire, I have never been in a Catholic church. My husband, he's Catholic, we were dating, and so I would have, after making a decision to be a Catholic, of course, we would go to Mass together and so on. So I will witness to people who would criticize the Catholic Church and say, well, I made a choice. I moved from there and I'm a Catholic now. So I don't know. I think it's God just guide me to be a Catholic, and that's how I look at it and accept it.
Wow, that sounds like the grace of God. So in these 5 years of teaching catechism, what would you say is your biggest struggle?
My biggest struggle, and it's a struggle with everything, it's time. Because it's my desire to teach. It's my desire to learn more about my faith, to share my faith. But time, sometimes in the morning, I'm a mother of 4, 2 teenagers.
Wow.
And there are times when I'm not feeling well, and I could, remain in my bed, or I want to be here earlier. And so time, and same as with participating in more training, workshops and so on, the time. So my biggest personal struggle is time management and so on. I still consider myself new to this faith, so that's why my desire to know more. So even yesterday I went to a meeting, and I've learned so much more by just sitting in a meeting, So my desire is always to know more about my faith, and every time I go to one of those workshop or meetings, I learn more about the whole organization, the system, so to speak, and so on.
So I guess just to end off, what is one thing that you've learned so far that has, as being a catechist, that has enriched your faith life?
I have, how important it is to share our knowledge to the younger ones. How important it is to commit to serving in ministry, serving our community. Because I tell the children, as young as they are, all right, at baptism, we were called to serve. And so they can serve even as young, because if we don't do this, then who's going to carry on our faith, So that is the one important thing, sharing, learning, and sharing.
The future, like with our future church, the youths and stuff. Thank you so much for sharing.
And you're welcome, and thank you too for the work that you're doing.
Oh, you're too kind.